wouldn't give him a new license because he had no active mailing address. Real mess. So he came to Arizona to buy a house. He's moving everything over. He said, the only thing I got in my possession that I can get liquid with right now is my gold. I gave him a check for $286,000. And guess what? I didn't need his social, his driver's license. Sort of smiled and I said, you know, I know you and Brandon talked about how this worked, but boy, this is great. I feel good. I got my money. Nobody bothered me. And I'm protected, and it's private.
Just simply go to worldviewgold.com, fill out the form, worldviewgold.com. Welcome to Worldview Tube's Washington Report on October 20th, 2025. I'm joined by Jim Paff of theconservativecaucus.org. Jim, how are you doing?
Doing well. How are you doing, Logan?
Good, good. We have no Kings rallies this weekend. We have the House voting on, or I guess the Senate just blocked the bill to reopen the government again for the 11th time. And we have more to talk about. We have a bunch of clips. But I guess we'll start with that. The Senate just voted 48 yay, 40 nay to reopen the government. And they need 60. Is that right?
Yes, they do. And not everyone's in town, apparently. But listen, Democrats are digging a hole for themselves. A couple of reasons why. First of all, they are voting 11 times, or unwilling to vote 11 times, to open the government by allowing this bill to move forward. This is a clean, let's just remember, this is a clean continuing resolution. It just has everything that's already on the books. It's just moving it forward to finish out the appropriations for the year. And Democrats are just having none of it. The way that you want the legislative process to work is for members to have a say. Now, there are some issues here, like Republicans need to allow their members to put amendments on the floor to regular spending bills to try to change them. That gives Democrats an opportunity if you do that as well, too. But that's kind of the process that we're supposed to be under. So the Democrats don't want to do that. They want to reverse the one big beautiful bill from earlier in the year. That's literally what they're fighting for. Just as a reminder to everyone, this is about extracting out things from that reconciliation bill earlier in the year. Particularly what they want is to be able to resume a policy that allows illegals to have Medicaid. That's at the core of it, what they're fighting for. And they're not going to budge on it. But Donald Trump's numbers are huge. He's winning this battle as well. And in part because there's no, real effort on the part of Democrats to try to fix anything or to put anything into a good shape. And the American people are responding positively to Donald Trump, notwithstanding the No Kings rallies this weekend, which we'll talk about. But here we go, another round. And so it's just going to be very interesting to see how this plays out, how it works for Democrats going into the 2026 elections. Nothing is firmed up. We don't know for certain what the outcome is going to be in 2026, but this is not helping Democrats going into next year.
Yeah, and related to the government shutdown, the White House put out a good video fact-checking Hakeem Jeffries and the Democrats on saying that the law in America already stops on undocumented immigrants from receiving Medicare and Medicaid. Here we go.
Federal law prohibits the expenditure of taxpayer dollars on providing health care to undocumented immigrants. Nowhere have Democrats suggested that we're interested in changing federal law.
Aren't Democrats demanding health care for illegal aliens?
That's right. Democrats are demanding health care for everybody. I did universal health care when I was mayor, fully implemented, regardless of pre-existing condition ability to pay, and regardless of your immigration status. San Francisco is the only universal health care plan for all undocumented residents in America. I'm very proud of that.
Current federal law is clear. Taxpayer dollars cannot be spent on Medicaid or Medicare or the Affordable Care Act related to undocumented immigrants, and not a single Democrat has raised the issue of trying to reverse that federal law.
Raise your hand if your government plan would provide coverage for undocumented immigrants.
We do ourselves no favors by having 11 million undocumented people in our country be unable to access health care.
Federal law clearly prohibits the expenditure of taxpayer dollars to provide health care to undocumented immigrants, period, full stop. And no Democrat on Capitol Hill is trying to change that law.
Well, there you go. I guess it keeps going. There's a pattern there. He keeps saying the same thing, and they keep showing illegal aliens who receive Medicaid and Medicare. So,
amongst all the brazen statements related to that, including Gavin Newsom's, that they very aggressively sought to give illegal aliens health care.
Yeah, he said he fought for it no matter what your immigration status was.
That's right. So look at what Pete Buttigieg said. We do ourselves no favor by not allowing this. Okay, what favor are we looking for? How does this benefit us? Like, by definition, it does not benefit us, and it puts extra costs on the American people. I mean, consider the fact that we've got literally millions still of illegal aliens in this country. That's a really expensive program. It's way too expensive for Americans. And if you think about it, as it relates to Medicaid specifically, if we probably have, I don't know what the actual number is, but we've got to have somewhere 10 million or less of people on Medicaid, and ostensibly about a third to a half of that many people would be illegal aliens on this program. And I'm putting numbers out in the air. I haven't looked at them specifically, but there's no doubt that you're talking about 1 million, 2 million, maybe 3 million illegals who would be eligible for this program if we didn't absolutely restrict it. And then one extra thing, the language in the reconciliation package that specifically added to what was already illegal, or at least attempted to be illegal, for illegal aliens not to get these programs. The reason they put that language in the reconciliation package earlier in the year is that state Medicaid programs, particularly Gavin Newsom's that he was talking about right there, they were undertaking money laundering schemes to get money to illegals so that they could have health care. So the Democrats have been working really, really hard from sometime before that Democrat presidential debate where everyone raised their hands until now. Democrats have been working aggressively to give not just Medicaid benefits, but many other benefits under welfare schemes and other things, education even, whatever. There are just a lot of different things to give benefits to illegals. Now, one thing I want to point out here. Every once in a while, people will bring up videos by the famous Nobel laureate economist Milton Friedman, where he talks about the fact that borders shouldn't be closed. And he has made that assertion. And there's a philosophy behind that that's very interesting. And there was a time there were no passports in the world. From prior to the Woodrow Wilson administration, about that time in history, you did not have passport regulations. But you still had restrictions on illegals coming in, or people coming in illegally. And all the way back to, when people were flooding through New York in the 19th century to come to the United States, they turned people away all the time. They put them on Paris Island. Was it Paris Island? Why am I forgetting the name of the island suddenly? But anyway, if they were coming into New York City, which was the main entry point for foreign nationals who wanted to come to America legally, they would put them there first to test them for diseases at the time because, sanitation and disease prevention and treatment was pretty low. Tuberculosis was the biggest thing back then. But they would put them on that island to vet them for any diseases they might be having or any other reason not to allow them into the country. And they would turn them back and put them back on the ships that brought them if they did not meet certain requirements. We've been doing this for a long, long time. It's only recently that Democrats are wanting to bring illegals into this country and to give them money and benefits. This is another thing that Milton Friedman said. He said you can't have, he wanted free flow of people back and forth in borders. He felt that was an economic good, and there's an argument to that end. But he said if you have a welfare state, you cannot do that. So anyone that might be thinking that, and some people will, that's the argument. And we have, first of all, we got to get rid of our welfare state, at least from the federal level. Let states do what states want to do with welfare. We got to get rid of the welfare state. We need to slowly get that turned back to the states. But you cannot have open borders with open welfare programs. And that's what Republicans are trying to make sure doesn't come back. And just the opposite, Democrats want that there because having illegals in this country helps them politically, whether it's through a stacked census counting that gives them more districts than they deserve, whether that's allowing illegals to get driver's licenses, which we've got states. I mean, two of them are California and Minnesota that quickly come to mind that give driver's licenses to illegals. And so you open up a possibility for these people to vote, and they have no right to vote. And so many other ills that can come both to our culture in general, and I'm all for immigrants coming. I don't mean culture that they're bringing their cultures, but that they are allowed to act as if this isn't an American culture. They don't have to become Americans to come to this country. So that's a harm on our culture. It's a harm on our election system. It waters down our election system, mostly through the census and probably a lot more through illegals voting than we know. I mean, no one can argue no illegals are voting. That's just a lie. So there's that harm as well. And then it's a financial harm because the money that's being confiscated from Americans in taxes all the time is being turned around and given to illegals. And we can't afford it. It's not useful. And the countries they're coming from, by and large, not in every case, but most of the countries these people are coming from have corrupt political systems. And even though it would be great to allow people like that to get free of those bad political systems, and we've done that a lot through our country's history. We cannot do it in this manner. This is a bad manner. It changes what has been good about the United States. We're on the teetering edge of maintaining what's great about the American republic as it is, and that cannot be done in this manner. It's got to radically change. Illegals have to return, and if they want to come back, they can apply.
Yep. And I guess with the shutdown, CNN has polls showing that it's the American people aren't buying that it's the Republicans' fault or Trump's fault. His approval has gone up since the shutdown.
Net approval rating, we're talking 20 days into it. In 2018/2019, Donald Trump's net approval rating was already falling. The shutdown was eating into his popular support. It was down 3 points already at this particular point and would fall considerably more. It was very much on the decline. You come over to this side of the screen, this shutdown hasn't eaten into Donald Trump's support at all. His net approval rating is actually up a point in terms of his popular support. So the bottom line is this. The first shutdown during Trump's first term, 2018-2019, was hurting Donald Trump. This one is not hurting him at all. There's no real reason Donald Trump might say, at least when it comes to popular support, I want to get out of this shutdown.
What about the question of blame?
Yeah, okay. What about the question of blame? Okay, you see Donald Trump's net approval rating was down 2018 to 2019. You talk about 2025 as net approval rating is up. It comes down to the blame game, a game I loved to play when I was younger. Blame Trump for the shutdown a great deal. In 2018/2019, 61%, more than 3 in 5 Americans blame Trump a great deal for that particular shutdown. You come over to this side of the screen, look at this. It's a different world. It's a different world. 48% of Americans blame Trump a great deal for this particular shutdown. So it's more than 3 in 5 back in 2018/2019. It's less than half, a drop of 13 points again. it's no real wonder that Donald Trump, at this point, looking at the shutdown, says, you know what, it's not actually harming me politically, in large part because he's getting less of the blame.
And he's doing things differently during this shutdown.
Yes, exactly right. You know, we talk about Donald Trump and you say, okay, he wants to be a consequential, influential president. Well, if the legislative process is basically freezed up, you know, on Capitol Hill, you may say, well, then he can't actually get legislation through. But that's not how Trump is governing in this term. We've spoken about this over and over and over again. He's using his pen.
Well, there you go. So American people aren't buying the lie that it's Trump and the Republicans who are causing the shutdown. We'll have to go into the No Kings rally here in a minute when we come back from break. Talk about that. And we have some news that's come out about who's funding those rallies. We'll be back in just a minute.
We have a big announcement, folks. It's called Bella Melt. In the first week, you lost 3 pounds on this, right?
That is correct.
Your GLP-1 is a natural hormone that's in every single one of our bodies. And your GLP-1 lets you know if you're full. It's a satiety hormone. So when your GLP is working properly, it does help suppress your appetite as well as reduce those cravings. So what it's going to do best is it's going to reduce your sugar cravings or any other cravings you have in your body. It's going to suppress that appetite. But where Melissa got the most benefit, I think, over the last week was the L-carnitine. The L-carnitine tells your mitochondria, this is where you make, we talked about it before, this is where you produce energy in your cells. It actually tells those mitochondria to burn fat for fuel.
MelissaHouseBG.com just now introducing for the first time Bella Melt with GLP-1 fast action.
All right, welcome back from the break. There were No Kings rallies going on across the country this weekend, and there's more and more coming out about those today in terms of funding and who was really behind it. And I guess this here is a man at the No Kings rally in Chicago who urged people to grab guns and shoot ICE agents. He's been identified as, is it Moises Bernal, an employee of Wilbur Wright College in Chicago. Here, watch this clip.
We got to turn around the guns on this fascist system. These ICE agents got to get shot and wiped out. The state machinery, that's a full display right there, has to get wiped out.
I mean, that's not free speech right there.
No, I would just call on this man to get fired. It's obviously a state-funded university. He should get fired immediately. There should be no government employee, particularly in the education system, whether it's primary or secondary education or post-secondary education. Every one of them should be fired that have these attitudes of calling for death. This is controlling so much of what's happening in education right now. I said the same thing after the Charlie Kirk murder, and people were praising that murder, and many were government employees. They should be immediately let go for cause. It is an outrage that this is not free speech. And in fact, when it comes to employment in some government system, you cannot be kept in your job when you have certain kinds of speech that are harmful to what you're doing. It's absurd when you're calling for death. We grant and should grant a lot of levity in that area. There's no doubt about it, because we want Americans to be able to speak their minds and say what they think. But when you are calling for violence, you are in a position of public trust when you're receiving money from the government for your salary. And that breaches the public trust. You cannot trust people like that who are training young people, because their whole focus is somewhere else except the mere training of people. We've got a massive breakdown in our education system. It's one of the great problems we have. But it's the sources of funding that is a real problem in what we're looking at here when you consider who's behind this and why they're doing it.
Yep, and that's what I have right here on who's behind this. I think it was, Anna Polina Luna put out this document showing that the top financiers of the No Kings the groups that are putting the No Kings on, there's a list of these groups, different PACs and organizations that are putting this on. And the top funders are Arabella, Warren Buffett, Ford, Rockefeller, Soros, and the Tides Foundation, totaling up to $294 million.
And a lot of these organizations have received government money, federal government money as well, too. What this group that is funding is doing, if you look at Arabella Advisors, their goal is, and I'm just getting information that's from their website, they design and manage philanthropic strategies and foundations. Okay, that seems fine. Supporting advocacy and social change initiatives. That's just, political speak for moving progressive change, so to call. I mean, remember, Barack Obama used the word change repeatedly. That is a mantra of the community organizing wing of what we do in this country. Provide sponsorship and project incubation services, which means we're just trying to make progressive political activism more effective. That's essentially what it means. And it's change in areas like, cultural change and others. But this is all part of a political program, which is tearing down the American ideal. And then facilitating donor collaborations and impact investments targeting causes such as climate policy, racial and gender equity, and healthcare. What is facilitating donor collaborations? Well, what that is the ability to help organizations figure out how they can get more money from the government, how they can coordinate these efforts, and they get a buttload of money, how they can coordinate these efforts for political purposes. Now, listen, they're free to do political things, but they're not free for us to be saying that their goal here is to uphold the American ideal. They're not, so they should be chided for that. But even worse, the Tides Foundation and Arabella have been receiving government money on a regular basis as well. We need to call out these organizations and make sure that kind of money never goes back to organizations like this. And then we need to shame publicly people like Warren Buffett and Bill Gates because they're antithetical to the American ideal. They're not supporting what America's about. They benefited from the American ideal, both of them in particular. So let's just put light on what this really is and what this is all about. Now, it's not winning. The numbers show it. I looked at that. You mentioned earlier that Republicans have an edge over Democrats in terms of favorability. The Rasmussen poll, where they track this regularly, has Republicans at 48%, Democrats at 45%. The generic ballot, will you vote for a Republican or Democrat congressman, that number has been either Democrats in the +1, +2 range, which Republicans have taken Congress with numbers like that in the past, but that's shifting upwards. And then you go beyond that and you look at the Rasmussen Daily. You hear all these polls out there saying Donald Trump is way down in his approval rating. He's only got a 39% approval rating. Well, those are flash polls that show up every once in a while. Rasmussen Reports, which is one of the most accurate pollsters in the country, they do daily tracking. They're constantly tracking presidential approval. So you always have a sense of roughly both the trend and the overall for any president. They've been doing it for years and years. Donald Trump is hovering somewhere between 53% and 48% since the middle of last month. That is a very solid presidential approval.
Yeah,
Presidents always go, huh?
Where was Biden?
Yeah, Joe Biden. Well, I don't have. Probably should have got the graph for you, but there's a graph. Donald Trump's approval ratings are higher than Biden's. They're higher than his first term at this stage in his term. Mm-hmm. They're higher than Obama's at this stage in his term, and they're higher than George W. Bush's. He has the highest approval ratings, even on average, than any of those guys, some of whom had a fairly positive run. Mostly Obama. George Bush had some positive runs after the Iraq War. It tanked after that, but that was midway into his second term. At this stage in his second term, and this stage in Obama's term, Donald Trump's doing better. What he's doing is working.
Which is kind of goes to show you that this No Kings protests are manufactured, because if he had, if his ratings were really bad, if they're really better than all those presidents, you would have seen stuff like this during their presidencies to this scale.
Well, listen, there is a political challenge that we do have. There is an energized base of Democrats, roughly about 25 to 35% of all Democrats, who are really raring to go. They showed up in 2022, by the way, even though I think we have some questions on the election procedure there. But nonetheless, they had a lot of energy after the Dobbs decision, and that made a difference at the polls when everyone thought Republicans were going to be winning that. But and again, that was a midterm election in Obama's term. And typically the party in power in Washington loses the House and the Senate, loses the Congress. But there's always an energized base that they have in recent years. It didn't fare well for them in 2024. There's going to be less turnout in 2026, and Donald Trump's going to be in that range unless the economy just really booms over the next few months, which is possible. Donald Trump is, going to be in that midterm doldrum that happens to every president. His is much higher than others, and he's in good shape. But the inertia is with Democrats because of a midterm election. What we're seeing, though, is the numbers show that it's not your typical midterm election. Republicans are poised to expand in the House. Keep in mind also, the Supreme Court's likely to come down and get rid of racial preferenced and written districts. In other words, enforced gerrymandering. That's going away. In the South in particular, there are going to be a lot of seats lost. Some of the estimates of the total number of seats Democrats could lose if this thing comes into play is up to 19 seats. In terms of the raw R&D and how they draw the districts. There's a real opportunity for Republicans to keep the Congress midterm. If they do, we can do potentially some very positive things. But Democrats are harming themselves. The No Kings rally is energy for them. You have to take it net positive. I don't believe the 7 million number. No one shows the backup statistics for that. They're just making the assertion, and in fact, it's the people organizing these things make the assertion it was 7 million people. No one shows city by city what the numbers were or that they even attempted to count them. But you did see some large crowds. D.C. didn't have the largest crowd like this ever. It might have been 100,000 people. We saw in the Tea Party wave 2 different events that had well over 1 million people showing up in 2010 in the run-up to the election. One of them, and I did the estimates, and because I looked at the maps, there very likely were 2.5 million people at one of those rallies. That kind of energy doesn't exist with these No Kings rallies, but it is energy, and Republicans better be aggressive to stick with the program and really remain MAGA, remain Maha, and keep down this path. Americans are receiving it well, and they need to keep messaging it. So far, not bad. But Republicans really, as I say often, really have ability to grab defeat out of the jaws of victory. So you still have to stay strong, stay firm, and keep moving forward with strength.
Yep. Well, a lot of the people out there, not all of them, but a lot of them were just wacko, including this lady here in Chicago, who went viral for doing a gesture to someone. I think someone was wearing a Charlie Kirk shirt or something, and she did this in response.
Hey! You ever heard of those? Hey!
Yeah, flag, and it turns out she just lost her job at a Chicago school. She was a Chicago school teacher.
Yeah, she was outed as well, just like that Wilbur Wright University or whatever it was guy that we saw earlier. These people are, that's just not acceptable. You have to, the anger you have should never turn into violence. The anger you have should be restrained. Disciplined people who are normal, even when they are angry, even if they are disgusted by people in politics that they don't like, a person who has good personal discipline does not push for violence and the murder and killing of people. And I say that for everybody. You see very, very little of that with people who claim to be on the right. I can't even point to any significant, but I'm sure there's someone out there. But this is not acceptable behavior. It's not acceptable human behavior. We have a cultural we've had a cultural downturn this century, led, in my opinion, primarily by political leaders like Barack Obama, that is now playing out in a way that we already know is very dangerous. It's killed Charlie Kirk, 2 attempts on Donald Trump's life. We've got almost, in fact, I think every mass shooting this century is someone from the left in one form or another. And for whatever one someone wants to point out, there might be 1 or 2 that weren't. I can't remember what they are. But we know that the vast majority of those are coming from people on the left. Violence is on the left. The Democrat Party is not an American party, and I'm talking about the elected officials. They do not, and they do not advance proper cultural norms, proper political approach, and they also talk about violence from their mouths. And what do you expect is going to happen? So this has to be addressed, and people like this, again, they should not be in any place of public trust in any government institution. I think private institutions should get rid of people like that. How can you trust someone like that? You can't. It's just amazing how we allow this to continue.
Yep, and I guess in the final thing we got here is U.S. Appeals Court gives Trump green light to send National Guard into Portland. So we've been talking a lot about Portland recently, and I guess now National Guard will be heading in soon. So
the Ninth Circuit used to be radically left. It's amazing how it's changed.
Yep. We'll be back tomorrow night with a new episode. Till then, take care.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work. Try to see a doctor this week or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Go to worldviewhealthcare.com. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. worldviewhealthcare.com. That's worldviewhealthcare.com.
The emergency kit available at worldviewhealthcare.com. Make sure you don't have to go to urgent care. I got pneumonia. I didn't have to go. I took this last year. Stayed at home, went to bed. July 6, 2005. This is Tom Harper. Man figures plankton stopped his rare cancer. We got more of a response from our viewers than anything else